Body shot. Ooh, that hurt, didn't it?
When the adrenaline starts pumping and you know what you can do with this right hand, it's hard to not do that.
Here are your hosts, Derick G and AJ.
What's going on, folks? Derick G here from the Bloody Water Podcast. Welcome back to another episode, and believe it or not, a title bout has crept up on us, the first one of 2022, and this is Francis Ngannou defending his heavyweight championship against Ciryl Gane, and some would call this a unification bout. I would beg to differ. I think this is a heavyweight title defense, but I got to get my co-host AJ on so we could really see what's going on. So, you know, the Santa Fe bomber, the New Mexico native. What's happening, brother? Is this a title unification bout that we have on our hands, or is this Francis Ngannou's first title defense? What do you think?
Man, if you're taking the Francis Ngannou approach where he says that he doesn't respect any interim title, this is a title defense, man. And I mean, his logic isn't flawed, because he's saying that if you don't have anything you're putting up in the title defense, then your title doesn't actually matter. So it's kind of a little shade thrown there from Ngannou. I think this one's a title defense, man. This is the Francis Ngannou's been going through a whole bunch of up and downs with the company. I think this is his title defense. Yeah. You know, Ciryl Gane is no joke in that interim title. I do think that fight did happen with Derrick Lewis, but we all know the number one contender, Stipe Miocic. So, you know, there's that.
Well, that's the key. That's the thing that I brought up. I think it was last show or the show before, where he was just saying, if anything, Gane and Lewis were fighting for third place, because honestly, Stipe Miocic, he should be the true number one contender in the division. And listen, man, he lost his title in his last fight. Talking about Stipe Miocic. So with that being said, it's kind of hard to drop down to number 3, 4, or 5 when you lose. You're the title holder. So that's neither here nor there. But in other news, folks, UFC flyweight Brandon Moreno is set with a trilogy match against Deiveson Figueiredo. It's going to be a fun one. The first one ended up in a majority draw. Second one ended in submission, round 3 rear naked choke in favor of Assassin Baby. But this third one, who knows what's going to happen? Will Figueiredo make the weight? Was Moreno just having a really, really on night? Or is this the new Mexican star that we have on our hands in the UFC? These are a lot of questions that we have here, and I'm not sure if we're gonna find answers until Saturday night. Excuse me, but it's gonna be fun to speculate, man. Because listen, man, that flyweight title. To believe that this division was going to be extinct or get the boot or whatever the case may be just a couple years ago, and to see where it's at now, let's just say, man, it's a very, very big difference. But AJ, man, last piece of little news for this main card for this UFC 270 that I wanted to talk about, just, you know, in this little intro bout. We have the return of Said Nurmagomedov. No relation to Habib, but listen, man, this is a really, really fun fighter, and I feel like we've been robbed of some of our Russian fighters as of late, just because of maybe COVID or, you know, whatever the case may be. But, you know, Zabit Magomedsharipov, right, he was going through his own health stuff. We don't know if he'll ever make an octagon return. At this point, it seems a little unlikely, but at least we get the spinning attacks of a Said Nurmagomedov against a grinder and Cody Stamann, the Spartan, man. What do you make of that matchup just off of the bat? When you heard these two matched up, you got a wrestler versus a dude who is known to be a very flashy striker who has legit wrestling chops himself. What do you think about it?
Man, I'm excited for this one. If you're any sort of fan of the flashy kicks, the spinning techniques, Said Nurmagomedov, is the fighter to watch, man. He trains with Zabit, and like you said, Derick, we might not see Zabit in the ring, but we get to see somebody who fights just like him, man. This fight's going to be a lot of fun. Very fast paced. You got Cody Stamann, who's all forward, all go, wrestling pressure, but carries some heavyweight bombs in his hands, man. This one's going to be a lot of fun to watch. I'm excited for it, and I love the striking, man. So anytime I see a flashy striker in there, man, I get excited.
Absolutely, absolutely. And what's interesting about it is I got this stat right here I just wanted to pull up, and it's Nurmagomedov. He hasn't fought since October 17th of 2020, and that was his first round knockout win against Mark Striegel, which was very impressive. But we really didn't get to see a fight because Striegel entered in for a takedown and got knocked out immediately. And for Cody Stamann, his last octagon appearance, was a decision loss to Merab Dvalishvili, the Machine, back at UFC Fight Night Reyes versus Prochazka on May 1st of 2021. So it's been a little bit of a layoff for both of these fighters. But either way, getting back at it. They were headlining. Now it's going to be the second bout above, you know what I'm saying, on the pay-per-view. Listen, man, it's going to be fun. That's really the point that we have here, folks. So if you haven't yet, subscribe to our YouTube page, Free Thinkers Club, or you could type in Bloody Water Podcast. Either way, hit us up on Instagram at Bloody Water Podcast, on Twitter at Bloody Water Pod, and listen, BloodyWaterPodcast.com. That's the home, that's the hub, that's everything. AJ, you know the last thing that I gotta say is, folks, if you haven't, at the website, go over to the merch tab, use code BWP10 for 10% off all of your merch. Get your hoodies, get your socks, whatever you need, we got it. Come on, baby. It's Bloody Water Podcast Takeover. The best MMA podcast, combat sports podcast in the world is right here. So support, do your thing. We love it. Okay, AJ, man. With all of the formalities aside, I think it's time that we take a little bit of a record recap, right? 3-3 for me, 4-2 for you. You have an early lead here in 2022, but the year is young, my man, and this is the second event upon us. Hopefully, we got to make it count. Really, that's what it is at the end of the day, man. So let's get into a little bit of sleeper action. Why don't we, brother?
It's time for some fight night.
If you ain't paying attention, you're gonna sleep on me and I'm gonna wake you up.
In the wise words of Bobby King Green, if you're not paying attention, you're going to keep sleeping, and I'm going to have to wake you up. And listen, man, there's a couple of fighters who, honestly, I do believe will be waking some people up on this card, man. So why don't we just jump straight into it, brother? You have a fun sleeper to start us off with, and I think that it's only fair to set it up by saying we have number 50 ranked Tony Gravely, or Gravely, however you want to pronounce it. But he is a very, very hot prospect. Some would say on the borderline of contention in the bantamweight division, and he's fighting somebody who not a lot of people know about, but his name is Saimon Oliveira. And this is a submission machine right there. Is it? I mean, listen, you got the last name Oliveira. You better be able to submit somebody. I don't know. I'll just put that out there. But break it down, brother. Why is this such a fun matchup in your eyes?
Man, this one's a fun matchup coming for us in the 135-pound division because it's going to be all action-packed, man. Tony Gravely, however you say it, man, he is an absolute power wrestler with bombs in his hands, man. This literally the first note I have is all capitals, hands. This dude can swing and bang with the best of them, man. Might look a little small in the cage, but homeboy's got some serious power. He gets into the combos, and once those combos get into that 4, 5, 6 punch range, he starts swinging for the fences. The first two might be a setup, but the rest of them are there to take your head clean off, man. Bomb into a right hand. If it connects, this dude is always dangerous, and what we like to see with these pressure wrestlers, Derick, is he's weaponizing the pace and using the wrestling to really wear you down and then take your head off with a clean punch, man. This dude is absolutely insane. Like you said, on the cusp of that contention series or contender part, we're looking to see who as a fighter grows. And Oliveira, man, this dude, he might be young and coming up in the game. Not too many people know about him, but this dude is a serious striker, man. Muay Thai style. He has the hands up, the high guard. He'll walk you down a little bit forward, but very, very dangerous on the ground, man. A really good grappler in his own right, always hunting the submission when things are going for it. And when he sees his opportunity to get that takedown, he takes it and he holds you down the entire time, always looking for those takedowns, or always looking for the submissions, excuse me. But what I really, really like about Oliveira, man, he has this beautiful step through spinning back fist that he uses. He can cover a good 10, 15 feet just taking one step through and swinging that back fist. Very, very unpredictable in the way he strikes. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. And I picked this one as a sleeper, Derick, because both fighters are very technical, but can be drawn into that gunfight, man. Very high pressure situation is going to be coming for us. And both fighters literally looking to make a statement and have that pressure going.
Yeah,
it's going to be a lot of fun, man. What you think?
Absolutely. I completely agree with you, man. Saimon Oliveira is not somebody that should be taken lightly. However, I do think it is important that we note his experience as of late is obviously not of the same caliber as a Tony Gravely, right? Because we have one Dana White Contender Series, one Pancrase, one it's MTK. Let me see what that stands for. Let's take a look over here, folks. MTK right here. It is literally Mac the Knife, MMA Global. You see some of the stuff that I'm talking about, but when we look at Saimon Oliveira, just kind of in its whole totality, guillotine choke. And that's something I want to point out. The man has 5 guillotine chokes to his name. So listen, man, be careful. Tony Gravely, he definitely has to be careful. A lot of submission wins. But the point is we got Pancrase, we got Sicario, we got Fight Club, Espera. These are definitely something to take into account, but it's not necessarily like, okay, this is somebody who's the next up-and-comer who's really going to be, taking out a Tony Gravely, taking out a young UFC contender prospect or whatever. But we have a lot of these young up-and-coming names that should make for these sleepers because this is the biggest fight of your life, biggest opportunity of your life. And if you can upset, I mean, come on, man, sky's the limit, right? So that's going to be a very fun matchup in the bantamweight division. As for myself, I got to go up a weight class sometimes. When I'm talking about the lady fights, I'm doing 125s, 115ers. Today, we're talking about a lightweight contest between Matt Steamrolla Frevola and Gerano Valdez, man. And this is a fun fight to me, AJ, because at the end of the day, even though Matt Frevola is 2-1 in his last 5. The man has stepped up to the opportunity. He has been a company man. And real fast, AJ, before I continue, I want to talk about the merits of being a company man. Sometimes we talk about it like the cowboy approach, Donald Cerrone, right? You know, he was a company man. He always said yes. He always answered the phone, and he was always willing to take a fight on short notice, whether that meant win, lose, draw, whatever, right? Matt Frevola, in his young UFC career, he is 2-3-1 in his UFC career, has done the same, but I think he's still around and still getting these opportunities because it's that same, I'm being the company man, whatever you need, I got you. If I drop a fight on short notice, whatever. Do you think that the UFC is keeping this man around for that reason? Or do you think that something mentally just has not clicked for him yet to have the success that it really seems like he can have, man? Because he is truly a steamroller. He is a forward pressure, take your head off, weaponized pace type fighter, man. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, man, I think it's a little bit of both because Matt Frevola, he is the real deal, man. He just had a couple of bad instances. I believe it was the McKinney fight where he got absolutely dropped within the first couple of seconds. This dude, Matt Frevola is the real deal, but I also think the UFC's kind of scratching his back a little bit just because they know, yeah, man, you've done a lot for us. You don't give us any flack. You know, you're willing to sign on the dotted line and come prepared when the day comes to fight. So I think it's a little bit of both, man, because there is something missing in his game. I don't know if it's a mental thing or just, you know, he's not peaking on the right night. There's something missing from Matt Frevola because I do think this dude has the potential to be a contender coming forward. It's just not really, the stars haven't aligned quite yet with him. So luckily for him, he is that company man that you're talking about. And I think the UFC appreciates and keeps throwing him in there just for that because we've seen a lot of people get cut for less.
For a lot less, man. Speaking of that, man, Impa Kasanganai, he went 2-2 in the UFC, got cut. Now he's fighting over there at Eagle FC. We'll talk about that later. But, folks, basically, Matt Frevola is fighting a fire versus fire contest against a man making his UFC debut in Gerano Valdez. Now, Gerano Valdez is somebody who is 10-0 right now. He's pretty much on a very solid streak of knocking people out, submitting them. But the name of his game is I'm going to walk forward, I'm going to take you down, I'm going to smother you with my pressure, weaponize my pace, ground and pound for the finish, and basically just get you to a point to where you're so tired, you're either not willing to defend anymore, or you're not going to have the ability to defend because the lactic acid is built up so high into your arms, into your legs, into whatever the case may be. But the problem is Matt Frevola does the same exact thing, folks. So this is why this is a sleeper. Understand my logic here. When you have fire versus fire, when you have forward pressure versus forward pressure, only one man can win, and that's the thing. I want to see who's going to break who. Is the man with the UFC experience and Matt Frevola going to break the young Gerano Valdez, or is the up-and-comer, you know what I mean, the mean fighting machine, Rayadito, is he going to get the upset on a Matt Frevola? Because in all honesty, even though, AJ, we just said that Matt Frevola more or less is getting these opportunities because he's being a company man, if you look at his last fight against Terrence McKinney, he fought a UFC debutant, right, who was a killer, who was on a massive winning streak. You got Armin Sarukian. He stepped in last notice. He was doing the company a favor, but, I mean, that's a tough matchup. The last win that he got was against a Luis Pena, the violent Bob Ross, who, you know, his name means a little something different these days, right? But I will note he has a win over Jalen Turner, and that's impressive. I don't care who you are, that is an impressive win. So with that being said, folks, that is my sleeper. That is the sleepers to look for at UFC 270. But before we move on, AJ, I wanted to take a look one more time, just overall at this card, just to see a couple other fun matchups, right? So when we're looking at it, Ilia Topuria versus Charles Jourdain, man. That was a late notice, last minute type matchup, man, but I think it's going to be really fun. However, AJ, the odds are skewed in large for Topuria, minus 650 to plus 475. The reason why I wanted to talk about this to you is because I feel like people are writing off Charles Jourdain, saying he has absolutely no chance. I think he has a chance to win, but it is probably slim pickings over there. What do you think about that?
Yeah, a little bit slim pickings. I'm definitely leaning towards the Ilia Topuria on this one. Homeboy is an absolute savage, man. But don't get me wrong, Charles Jourdain has the opportunity. He has those strikes that can come out of nowhere and catch Topuria. Any puncher has a chance in that fight, man.
And if we know anybody is a willing, game-bred type fighter to do it, we're not talking Jorge Masvidal. We're talking Charles Jourdain, man. He's showing it time in and time out. Just got a new 4-fight UFC contract. I mean, that's a scary man to step in there with. However, Ilia Topuria, I think he's feeling good. He was ready for Evloev. And for context, folks, Movsar Evloev he contracted COVID-19, had some lung issues and stuff like that, so he wasn't able to fight little bit of bad blood in this matchup. I'll just say that. As far as other matchups of concern, AJ, we got Raoni Barcelos versus Victor Henry. I've talked about that as my sleeper before. Folks, if you don't know that's a banger, it's going to be. Definitely tune in. This is an interesting one right here, man. Jack Della Maddalena versus Pete Rodriguez. And this is interesting to me, AJ, because when I was just watching back a little bit of tape, obviously you see ESPN knows nothing about these dudes, right? But when I was watching back a little bit of tape, I was seeing a Jack Della Maddalena. This dude, I mean, listen, he's got some chops on him, man. He's got some striking prowess, and he's able to, he's stiffed a couple people, man. I'm talking about stiff where you hit them and they're asleep before they hit the ground, like that type of stiff. So with that being said, man, he's a pretty heavy favorite. He's 10-2. He's minus 340 with the plus 270 comeback for Pete Rodriguez, who, though he's very inexperienced, only 4-0, also carries massive power in his hands. I think all four wins are via first round knockout, if I'm not mistaken. So you have a dude who's a little more experienced, a little sharper technique in Maddalena. However, he's more of a volume type striker. He can knock you out, but it just takes a little more time versus the one punch power of a Pete Rodriguez. In those type of fights, and obviously we're going to talk about a very similar one in our main event tonight, but in those types of fights, brother, who do you normally like? Obviously, the one punch power has its pros, right? But when you're able to piece somebody up and selectively use your power, I think that carries some pros too. So what do you think?
Yeah, man, I have to go with the guy who's throwing more volume. You know, if you're staying safe, you're using more technique, you're throwing more volume, things are coming out of different angles that people aren't seeing. I always tend to lean towards that guy just because I feel like you have more output. You have more chances to hit your target. Yeah. Whereas sometimes with that one-touch power, all you got to do is stay, you know, the other guy has to stay perfect and not get hit, which is very hard in its own right. But at the same point, if you can see that strike coming, then you have a little bit more time to dodge. Although, man, you get somebody like Pete Rodriguez, you're right, Derick has all four of his fights are first-round knockouts, with the longest fight going 2.5 minutes. That proves right there that this dude has some absolute power in his hands, man. And the fact that he can get it done against these, and, you know, they're not it's an icon fights and stuff like that, so it's not obviously the UFC caliber, but he can still get it done, man. This dude has some serious power. I always just tend to lean a little bit more towards the technician, but with the power that Pete Rodriguez has and the power of that one touch where all you got to do is get clipped, yeah, man, it's a very dangerous thing to look out for. This is going to be a very fun fight, man, coming for what are they fighting out of the 170-pound class, welterweights? It's going to be interesting to see these contenders or these up-and-comers in the future, man.
Absolutely, brother. And I actually wanted to take real fast before we talk about any other matchups or main card or anything like that. This is something that I think it was Francis Ngannou. I was listening to an interview of him on the it was UFC Unfiltered or something. So shout out to that show. But what he was saying was really interesting. He was talking about betting odds, and this is something that we talk about, right? It's one of the kind of main aspects of the program that we run here. Wagering, it's important. You know, this is part of being a fan of the sport. But when you're a fighter, it's a little bit different. Obviously, as a fighter, you're not necessarily going to want to pay attention to those things all the time, unless you got a rock solid mental game so where you can kind of be like, oh yeah, minus 300, whatever, you know, throw some money on me. I know I'm still going to whoop this dude's ass. Some people, they allow the betting odds to shape the narrative of their fight going into it. But Francis Ngannou said, hey, don't forget, I'm pretty sure the first time that he fought Stipe Miocic, he was a pretty massive favorite and he lost very convincingly across the board in that matchup. So he was like, betting odds really don't mean anything. At the end of the day, it's one man versus another, mano a mano in the cage. That's where the fight takes place. That's what it comes down to. So he kind of mentioned that, and I'm foreshadowing because Francis Ngannou is a betting underdog in his fight against Ciryl Gane. However, when you do have, like I just said, AJ, you know, Ilia Topuria, who is a minus 650 favorite with a plus 475 comeback for a Charles Jourdain, do you look at that and do you immediately count these people out when you see it, or do you hold that same mentality of, hey man, a fight is a fight and anything can happen in the cage? We've seen betting odds go wrong all the time. So what do you think about that?
I give it, so, you know, leading back to the way I kind of do things, Derick, I've started to look at the odds just a little bit more now. I break them down before I get my picks. I look at the odds just a little bit because you're right, it is a big part of being a fan, seeing how things go, man. But I'm a firm believer of it's a fight. You know, it's that night, how things go down, mano a mano. Numbers don't mean shit once the door locks, man. And I truly believe that no matter what happens or anything can happen in the cage. You know, if fight odds can lead one way or the other, especially we've seen it come up where both you and I will be predicting a certain way, and we see the odds, and I'm like, oh, okay, completely wrong against what I was thinking. They must have something, the Vegas odds makers must have something tucked behind their shoulder, just, a little extra sneak peek that we're not getting. So they must know a little something. So I do think the odds play into account, at least on our side, on the betting side, play a little something. But as far as getting locked in that ring, man, it's mano a mano, hands are flying. Nothing can be predicted basically in those outcomes. Yeah, man, that's what I think. What about you, Derick?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with you in some respect. Also, I mean, listen, dude, these dudes out here in Vegas with their betting lines and all that stuff, like these dudes are professionals for a reason, and they make a lot of money in and out every single year. So sometimes you do have to wonder, what do they know that I don't know? Because they do get some inside information sometimes, but then you see some lines and you're like, that's not right. That, for an example, it was a close fight, AJ. Some people were talking robbery. I think at the end of the day, the right man won. But Brandon Royval was a betting favorite against Rogerio Bontorin last week. And I said, I don't know, man. I like Bontorin in this fight. It had nothing to do with the odds. It had more of, I was just looking at the styles, looking at the frames, looking at, okay, this is how so-and-so had success here. They struggled against this. I think that this man is going to win regardless of what the betting odds are. But that's the hard part is sometimes, folks, at home, if you want a little inside scoop into the process, the betting odds can even skew our thought process on the fights, right? Because last thing we want is in our head have a line of, okay, this guy's going to win, this guy's going to win, this guy's going to win. Then you look at the odds and you're like, oh shit, they're like all massive betting underdogs. Like, I don't know. Are they still going to win? Like, that's not necessarily what you want. You don't want it to let it skew. I mean, at the end of the day, your picks, because we're over here competing, brother. You know what I mean? We're trying to get a head up over here. So we got to be on the money. But with that being said, I thought that was just an interesting takeaway from Francis Ngannou, just saying like, listen, betting odds mean nothing because the real fight is in the cage. And it could be, listen, sometimes you don't know. You might be having a bad day, a bad week, something you talk about all the time. You might not be peaking at the right moment. You might have peaked a couple days ago or you'll peak in a couple days after. So it's all stuff to take into consideration. But AJ, a couple more bouts that we need to take a look at. I wanted your thoughts on Kay Hansen versus Jasvidicius. And I hope I pronounced that right. But listen, man, this is going to be an interesting matchup because we haven't seen Kay Hansen in quite some time. I believe she's coming off of a loss in her last fight, if I'm not mistaken. But let's take a look. To Corey McKenna. This was an upset loss, brother, because when I was watching this fight, I was Kay Hansen all the way. Corey McKenna had the sneaky upset. But either way, she got a submission win against Jin Yu Frey. She's only 1-1 in the UFC, man. She's a very, very talented prospect. And this Jasvidicius, when I'm watching her, man, she's tall, right? 5'7" to 5'2". She got that reach advantage, long, lanky striker. But when we're looking at, kind of where she's fighting at, you got the Contender Series, CFFC, doesn't really have too much experience, man. So it's interesting. This is probably going to be more or less of a get-back fight for a Kay Hansen. But my question is, what do you think about, first, we'll talk about the matchup in 1 second, but this is just interesting. You have a fighter coming off of a loss that's not very known. Do you know who Kay Hansen is? Like, it just has a popular name? Okay.
Oh, yeah, man. Yeah, for sure.
So you have this, even though she's a popular name, to me and you, I feel like to most people, I don't know if they know who a Kay Hansen is, right? Coming off of a loss, your next bout, you're immediately put onto obviously it's the first card of the night, but you're put on a pay-per-view contest, a pay-per-view matchup, whatever you want to call it, right? You're on the undercard of it, but still, what do you think the UFC's game plan with some of this stuff is, man? Because I just wonder, when they're building their prospects, they probably have a narrative. They say in their head, they're like, this is how we want this fighter's career to ascend, regardless of the outcomes of the fight. Because honestly, I think you should probably get a win to deserve a spot on that pay-per-view card. I don't know. What do you think?
I agree with you, Derick. I do think you need to be producing and getting those wins to keep it going. But if we look at a fighter like Sean O'Malley, for instance, he's only a pay-per-view fighter. Whether he's on, when he was coming up on the prelims or now on the main card, this dude only fights on pay-per-view, and it's because they got a name for him. I do think the UFC knows their stars and they're trying to progress people towards a certain way, and they see something in Kay Hansen, man. She's very, very talented. I mean, you could just look at all the stuff she's done fighting out of 10th Planet, triangle arm bars, these crazy submission attempts. This girl has been fighting for a long time, and since 2017. So I think the UFC is really seeing stuff going. I say a long time, 3 years, but still 4 years, but still, it's in that kind of atmosphere. People know her name, and she's been through the ringer, and a lot of people see this stuff going, man. Whereas Jasvidicius, however you say that name, I'm sorry, Jasmine, if I butchered that, because I know I probably did. This girl's also very, very dangerous too, man. I really like that they paired them up, because Kay Hansen really needs somebody to kind of solidify herself again in the eyes of the media that she's very, very dangerous. And she's up against a very dangerous fighter in Jasmine Vicious, man. Very dangerous in the knees. And I think the UFC can see that potential in the fight, that this is going to be a banger in the women's division. And anytime we get one of those, I think they really try and promote it.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other interesting takeaway from this matchup is Kay Hansen, when she was fighting in Invicta, she fought at flyweight. And when she came to the UFC, she dropped down to strawweight. This fight is back up at flyweight. So we should see a little bit of a rejuvenated Kay Hansen, a little more, you know what I mean, fuel in the tank. It'll be fun. So, folks, there's a lot of really fun matchups. We basically talked about most of them, but if you are missing out on just a couple of them, Silvana Gomez-Juarez versus Vanessa Demopoulos, that's going to be a very fun matchup. You should see, man, there's this one fight I was watching for Gomez-Juarez where she almost won a fight on leg kicks, man. She got hit one time and her eye completely shut, man. This was in one of those kind of regional fights. Fun banger, man. Michael Morales versus Trevin Giles. That should be a fun undefeated prospect in Morales versus Giles, who was always a tough outing. And then we got the main card, which we're going to talk about here in just 1 second, folks. So if you have not yet, drop a like, subscribe, all that good stuff. We hit the prelims, we hit all of that stuff for you. You know what time it is, folks. And early prelims, they do start at 3 p.m. Pacific time. Prelims at 5 p.m. Pacific time, and the main card at 7 p.m. Pacific time. So if you see the little icon in the corner, if you're watching along with us, folks, you can see it. I'm pointing somewhere over there, right? Scan to show a little bit of love. You know what time it is. Support the Bloody Water Podcast. And if you're listening, folks, please rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. Rate us 5 stars on Spotify, which is a new feature, a new endeavor. We need all the ratings that we can get, boost us up the SEO algorithm, but we talk about it all the time. Now, AJ, let's talk about some fights, brother. Let's get it.
Here's to another main card breakdown, courtesy of your hosts, Derick G and AJ.
Okay, my man. So let me set the table really fast, because we had a couple of things happen that have kind of skewed, you know what I mean, our pay-per-view, right? I'm not going to lie. I have a little bit of a... Before we actually get into this matchup, I have a little bit of a rant that I want to go on. So, AJ, we've seen the UFC decide to increase their pay-per-view prices. Not the UFC, I guess I should say ESPN, because that's what Dana White says. They've increased their pay-per-view prices over the past couple of years, you know what I mean, little by little. But after a while, it's like, damn, it gets really expensive to be able to be a fight fan and watch these fights, right? So if you're smart, go to a sports bar, do something like that, pay your little cover or whatever, man. But you don't pay $75 for this card. And the reason why I say that is because it wasn't until maybe last night. We're recording this on Thursday, folks. So right now, as it is, this is Thursday, January 20th. We were recording this on Thursday. The day before, on Wednesday, man, I think they barely got the main card bouts finalized for this pay-per-view. So you're asking people to pay $75 whole for a makeshift card, a lot of cancellations. I believe there's 9 canceled bouts on this fight. A lot of fun fights we didn't necessarily get to see. Greg Hardy versus Sergey Spivak got scrapped. It was originally supposed to be Greg Hardy versus Alexei Oleinik. That got scrapped, right? A lot of these fun matchups just kind of, went away, even though a lot of rescheduled bouts got moved to this card. Nonetheless, to have the audacity to sit there and say, we're not even going to have our main card pay-per-view bout, the thing you're paying for, finalized until the middle of the week before the actual pay-per-view, and still expect people to just shell out $75, not even really for the pay-per-view. If anything, you're probably paying for the Francis Ngannou versus Ciryl Gane. The Moreno versus Figueiredo, obviously, people love to see it and all that. It's going to be a very fun matchup. But even with those 2 title fights still, is that worth $75? I don't know. I couldn't tell you, and I'm going to say I'm not paying for it. I'll be watching it. I'll be going to a sports bar, but I will not be paying for it. So with that being said, I just have a little bit of a beef with this whole entire process that we have. We're kicking the year off in kind of a weird way. We got the pay-per-view, cool, but to move up to $75 increase, man, after a while, someone did the math, and you're spending over like $1,000 every year if you're like a real fight fan and you're watching and tuning into everything, doing it the right way. So AJ, I'm not encouraging piracy or anything over here, but what I am saying is that at a certain point, you have to gauge the audience, and if it's this take, no give, you got to give a little bit. And they do give. They give us fights every weekend, right? But like the take of the $75 every, 3-4 weeks, because that's how often they're throwing in a pay-per-view. They have an X amount of required pay-per-views to put on every year with this ESPN deal. I just think it's a little bit of unfair as a fan to watch. And, we're big fans of this gig, man. Love the UFC. Love all the other shows too. But the UFC is the most consistent, highest quality. What do you think on that, brother? Am I overreacting here? You know what I mean? As a fan, am I just like, this is enough? Am I too frugal of a man? What do you think?
No, man, I agree with you, and it is ESPN that's really pulling the strings on this one. Even Dana White let that slip that it's not them raising the prices, but it's ESPN, and I think it's I mean, it's hard because, they do have the most production value. They really do put on a great show. They're really just trying to see how much they can squeeze out of the consumer. And unfortunately, a lot of people are going to buy. I know me personally, man, I'll be with you. I'm watching the fight at a sports bar. I'm not going to be watching it, shelling out. That $75 is a little rough every single month or every month and a half, however it is, man. But I do love the fight. So I can see why some people would pay. But I agree with you, Derek. This one, I mean, in order to not have your ducks in a row or to have people falling out, because we know the fights fall out all the time. There's always, like we talked about before, the undisclosed injuries. There's stuff that happens. We're living in a COVID time. So, there are extra reasons why fights are falling out. But at the same point, man, if you're going to charge somebody that much money, it's a little rough that you're not even having, your prep in order. Even there was even a little preview into this show, folks. I had to reach out to Derick yesterday. I was like, "What's the actual lineup, bro?" Like, what? I've seen so many different things from Tapology to ESPN to SureDog to all these, outlets that none of them are the same. So how does ESPN even know what they're going to do and still yet they're charging us $75? So watch this. A little crazy in the business practices, but when you're the number one sports provider in the world, I guess you can get away with it, but it's still a little shady on my side, man.
Yeah, and that's really the big key when it comes down to it, for me at least, man, is that it's just like when you have no real competition in that aspect, you can really do whatever you want. And even though, I mean, we can say, oh, it's not fair, it's not this, it's not that. Listen, man, they're going to do what they're going to do. And if you want to tune in, you have the opportunity to tune in. But like I said, if you're smart, go to a sports bar, whatever, pay your little $5 and watch the fights and enjoy some grub. You know what time it is. So, all right, folks, with that being said, let's get into it. Now it's time to break down Rodolfo Vieira versus Wellington Turman. Rodolfo Vieira, both these fighters are Brazilians, right? Vieira coming off of a very, very much needed big win in his last fight, man, against, let's see, who do we got here? Against Dustin Stoltzfus, a very tough wrestler out of Germany. He's ranked at number 30 on the Tapology rankings in the middleweight division right now. And he's fighting a very game dude in number 49 ranked Wellington Turman. And AJ, this is another one of those dudes in Turman who, just like Matt Frevola, I feel like has all those skills, all the tools. He just hasn't put it together mentally. You know what I mean? Like, I honestly feel like this is such a talented fighter, but his record doesn't necessarily prove that in the UFC, in the big show at least. This is going to be a tough task for him, though, man. Unless he can keep the fight standing, Rodolfo Vieira, I think he's got his confidence back after that last loss, and we saw an improved striking game, man. The man's jab is something that should not be messed with, not be toyed with. Has a nice 1-2. But a big problem I envision for this fight, man, you can have all of those skills. Coming up as a jiu-jitsu practitioner, right, one of the greatest to do it in Rodolfo Vieira, you have to then learn your boxing, learn your kickboxing, learn your wrestling, all that stuff, right? So we've seen that obviously the jiu-jitsu, it's just on another level. As soon as he grabs you, it's game over. But even though he's got the footwork moving, I see almost no head movement from Vieira when he throws, man. His head is on that center line all day long. And he was able to get away with it against Stoltzfus. I don't know if he will against Turman, who's going to be throwing bombs at him. So give me just a quick outlook on this fight, AJ. 3-1 in the UFC is Vieira, 2-3 for Turman. Both of them are very experienced in terms of UFC competition. But, how do you see this fight playing out?
Man, this one's going to be a very fun one because I genuinely agree with you, Derek. I think Wellington Turman is one of those stars that just hasn't really put it together. Mm-hmm. I see him as a young Rodolfo Vieira, man. Like a Vieira back in the day, when he was still coming up. Wellington Turman still has that scrappy attitude, that mental game that hasn't been broken yet, where we've seen Rodolfo Vieira's game break a little bit. He's been a little on edge. He's been hyperventilating in the corner. We just haven't seen it been mentally strong, except I agree with you. He did get his confidence back in his last fight. This one's going to be a lot of fun, man, because I do think with the gain of confidence that Rodolfo Vieira had, where he knows that he can survive and he doesn't have to worry about gassing out, and then you have the pressure of Wellington Turman coming in, man. Homeboy is very fast, very powerful, a little reckless, but to the point where I like him as a fighter, that he is that little bit of reckless, man. Very technical, but confident, throws that little bit of reckless abandonment in there. He has that, he has that youthful ignorance, man. He hasn't really learned he hasn't learned that fear yet. That kind of a lot of other fighters have, where you get knocked out a couple times and now you're looking for things. He's really just in there, man, swinging for the fences. And with that kind of fighter swinging for the fences like crazy against somebody who is very powerful, like you said, has a very crisp 1-2, a very stiff jab, but keeps his head on the center line, bombs are going to be flying, man. This one's going to be a very fun fight to watch, and I'm glad it's the first fight on the main card, because even though, we did a little rant before where things kind of got shooken up, this one should provide, man. It should be a very, very fun fight going forward. Very high impact, very high pace going. And if Vieira is able to control his gas tank, then I think we're going to see a very fun fight, man. A very interesting one unfold.
Absolutely, man. And one of the things that I'm really looking at into this fight is that it's like both of these dudes are so well versed in jiu-jitsu. However, it is fair to say that there are levels when it comes to being a very, very good jiu-jitsu practitioner. And when I say that, I don't say that disparagingly. I say that because Rodolfo Vieira, honestly, is one of the best jiu-jitsu players on the planet. Like when we're talking about the seamlessness of when he grabs onto you, takes your back, goes through all of his progressions, passes your guard like butter. It's incredible to watch, truly, man. It's one of those things where it's like it's jaw-dropping. But for Wellington Turman, man, if you saw his fight against Bruno Silva, for an example, he was putting a backpack on the man. You know, it wasn't until he decided to play in his guard where Bruno Silva just knocked the man out. Said, "You want to play jiu-jitsu with me? I'm an MMA fighter, brother. This is two different things, man." I did want to pull this up really fast, AJ. So what we have right here is this is a quick quote from Wellington Turman from the Sherdog website. So it says, "Rodolfo is a great opponent, very good at jiu-jitsu. I respect all the legacy he has built on jiu-jitsu, but we're going to fight under MMA rules on Saturday. He improved his striking a lot lately, but I've been doing that for much longer, and I have very good takedown defense, so I'm really confident to win this one. Of course, my goal is to keep the fight standing up, but unlike most guys in the division, I'm not afraid to go to the ground with him. I'm also a BJJ black belt, and Rodolfo gets confused when he is being punished, as we could see against Anthony Hernandez. Glover and Potan helped me a lot in my camp. Okay, AJ, that's the one big takeaway, right? He's clearly a confident man going into this fight, but that was the other thing I wanted to say. He's training at under Glover Teixeira, the light heavyweight champion at Glover MMA, or Teixeira MMA and Fitness. That could be a game changer mentally. Having that right voice in the corner, having that person who can speaks your native tongue, right? Both Brazilians, right? Speaking their Portuguese, being able to have that factor in your corner could give the mental stability to be able to have the confidence to rack up the win. But is this big talk right here, brother, or do you think he can carry out what he's talking about?
I mean, I do think that Rodolfo Vieira has the advantage on the ground. I mean, this, like you said, Derick, seamless in there. But when you have the confidence of a Glover Teixeira in your corner and, you got the light heavyweight champ right behind you, shouting out instructions, knowing your thing in your native tongue, man, you can understand and nobody else can. I think that provides something unattainable or like an extra little push that not too many people have. A lot of the time you're in there, you start feeling like you're just drowning, you have nowhere to go. You look over to your corner, you see the champ there ready to have your back, man. It's a little bit extra push. I do think it's big words for Wellington Turman, though, because the Vieira does have the ground game advantage, but in the bombs, man, in the hands, things flying, I do think that's where Turman really strives or is going to have the advantage going into this fight. But pretty big confidence boost. Like I said, man, he's still young in the game, and he knows he has that reckless abandonment.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. So, I mean, listen, from the article, it shows, he says he trains with former two-time Glory kickboxing champion Alex Pereira, the one who knocked out Izzy Adesanya and Glover Teixeira, right? So these are killers, all, training back and forth. I guess what it comes down to is because Wellington Turman is predicting a finish in this fight. My question to you is, does he try to take that same game plan of Anthony Hernandez and say, okay, I'm going to get the man tired, and then I'm going to go and attack? Or, is he trying to figure out another way? Because it seemed like in the last fight against Dustin Stoltzfus for Vieira, I mean, he said, all right, I'll be patient. In the first round, I don't think he shot once, or maybe he shot like once or something, right? But it was mainly stand up. Second round, he shoots, does his thing. Third round, shoots again. A little more selective with his power double approach, because once he gets that power double on you, brother, he's literally, the man has muscles on his muscles. Like, this dude is jacked, beyond jacked. So if he were to get the finish, brother, I guess this is the last thing. I think it's clear. We know Vieira, he has 7 submission wins in his 8 total victories. That's the game plan for him. Get you to the ground, take your back, choke you, arm triangle you, whatever. He can do it all. But for a Wellington Turman, even though he has sharp teep kicks that he used to gauge his distance for his takedowns and things of that nature, if he were to get this job done via finish, how would it be done?
Man, I think he gets it done by exhausting Vieira and then getting a TKO or getting one of those exhaustion taps. Not necessarily the fact that he had something in deep, but the fact that he had Vieira tired. Because even in his last fight, we were saying that he had that confidence. He did have a more calculated approach. He didn't shoot any in the first, and then instantly, as the second started, Vieira was able to take that shot. But he was still in the corner. Even the announcers were talking about it, where he just looked panicked, man. He was hyperventilating. If you're able to take that mental approach and drag him mentally through those deep waters, then I think that's going to be Turman's best approach to winning this fight. Getting the finish anyway.
Okay, well, Wellington Turman is the more experienced fighter, 17-5 in his MMA career. So we will see come Saturday, man. But at the end of the day, it's time to give our picks. AJ, who are you rolling with? Why? And the over and under on this fight is 1.5 rounds. So I got to write it down, brother. I'll be logging all this stuff down. Tell me who you got and what you got on the over under.
Over under 1.5, man. Derick, I'm choosing the over. I'm going with the over on this one. I think it's going to be a very calculated fight. I think Vieira learned a lot from his last one and is continuing to grow with that confidence. And Wellington Turman has a lot of sneaky attacks, so we might be able to see something different. But man, personally, I'm going Rodolfo Vieira, and I'm going by decision. I think the older, craftier guy is going to come out on top, and I think he's going to utilize that ground game to really nullify the power that Turman has. What about you?
Okay, well, I do think that the closer this goes to 3 rounds, the more in favor Wellington Turman becomes for this matchup. So I think it's going to end early, brother. I think I'm going to go under 1.5 rounds on this one, and I'm going in favor of a Rodolfo Vieira. I think that he's going to get back to his ways, go for the power double, and just once he gets his hands on you, man, that's the problem, is that it was very tough against an Anthony Hernandez, man, who at times looked like the fight was over. Like when he was in some of those submissions, it looked like it was game over. He had the wherewithal to be able to survive. That's great, but can everybody do that? I mean, listen, 7 other fighters tried to do it, and they weren't able to survive, man. So I think Rodolfo Vieira, he's the black belt hunter for a reason. He's going to use his jiu-jitsu, maybe pop the jab a little bit, but if he chooses to try to stand up with Wellington Turman and make it a stand-up fight, he's not going to win this fight, in my opinion. So I'm going Vieira on the premise of he goes back to his jiu-jitsu ways and just goes out and submits the man that we know as Wellington Turman, even though he's such a talented prospect in my eyes. Okay, AJ, you can move on to the next one. So we got number 15 ranked Cody Stamann versus number 25 ranked Said Nurmagomedov, man, in the bantamweight division. Believe it or not, Cody Stamann is a plus 170 underdog with a minus 200 comeback for Said Nurmagomedov. What do you make of that off of the bat? When we're looking at styles, you have a very flashy striker who has some pretty good takedown defense against a dude who's going to be in your face the entire fight, looking for takedowns the entire fight. So on paper, you'd imagine the wrestler would have the advantage, but I guess that's neither here nor there. Some people think Said is the real deal. What do you make of those odds, brother?
Man, I was not expecting this one, to be honest with you, Derick. I definitely had this one a little bit closer, that 110 range, because I feel like the power or the pressure wrestling that Stamann has against a kicker, when all you got to do is catch one kick and then you take him down, it makes for, on paper, I was expecting Stamann to be a lot closer than this, to be honest with you, man. Maybe that Nurmagomedov name is just playing a little bit of biasy in the press, and that's what they're thinking. Because Said is really good in the ground game. He does have good grappling, but his kicks and his flashy striking are his bread and butter. So when you have somebody who's consistently trying to spin and throw those spinning attacks, while you have the other person in Cody Stamann trying to advance forward and consistently, no matter what, always on that gas pedal. We saw this dude basically hold his own against the machine, man, in a cardio contest. Sure, he got tossed around in the second, but he was still there for the third, man. That cardio held strong. And if he's able to do that against Said Nurmagomedov, I thought these were going to be a little bit closer, to be honest with you, man. What do you think?
Yeah, this is one of those instances where I definitely think that the name is kind of propelling the odds on this one and the buzz on this fight, because when we're looking at it, I mean, I've even seen some people comment, they're like, do people really think that Nurmagomedov is going to be able to keep Stamann off of him for all 3 rounds? Like, the only way he can do that is with those kicks, right? Because here's the thing, Nurmagomedov, great striker, man. I'm talking about a legitimately great striker. He can strike moving forward. He can strike moving backwards. Everything has a spin locked in, ready to go. So whether it's a spinning body kick, whether it is a spinning back fist counter shot, those are the things that Stamann has to be really careful of. And he actually noted this on that UFC Unfiltered podcast, where he was talking, he was basically saying that Said's going to be very long in this cage. Obviously, it's a bigger cage over there in Anaheim where they're fighting, right? But he's going to be very long, and every time that Stamann enters, because it's going to be predictable. The wrestler wants to shoot, wants to close the distance. Nurmagomedov is going to have some counter ready with some type of spinning attack. And what's interesting is that Nurmagomedov can throw a spinning back fist and then a question mark kick, all in the span of like a second. You know what I mean? Like, he has that level of dexterity, which is very, very impressive. But I think, AJ, what it comes down to in this fight is that when you're a Nurmagomedov, when your game is predicated on these spins, predicated on these explosive attacks, Well, if you crush that space and you smother the kicks, we can see a little bit of what we saw against Calvin Kattar versus Giga Chikadze. Take away the kicks from the kicker, make him a boxer, and then see where you can go from there. And with that being said, Stamann doesn't even want to really box with the man. He wants to take him down and beat his face in, right? Because Stamann on the feet, he's good on the feet, but really everything is a big setup for that big right hand. Looking for the right hand, close the distance, get the double leg, get the takedown, massive wrestling sprawls. Listen, if he could weaponize the cardio against a Nurmagomedov, it would be impressive. But what are some paths to victory for a Said Nurmagomedov? How can he keep this fight standing, in your opinion?
Man, he has to utilize that footwork, man. He has to be going side to side, dipping in and out, utilizing the spin to get off that center line and get away from the path of that boulder. Because Cody Stamann has one mode, man. Go forward, attack. Even if he doesn't get the takedown, he's going to stay close to you so he can start swinging some bombs left and right. That's really Stamann's biggest thing, man, is he's all about that pressure. And if Said is able to get off that center line, start moving laterally, use those kicks, use that kind of Olay style to kind of get Stamann off his game and then throw some spinning attacks. Because I do agree, man. Cody Stamann is going to be in the pocket the entire time. Said may not be able to get the spinning back fist, but he has a very dirty spinning elbow that can utilize that closer range. And if he can find those closer range attacks, the knees and the elbows, I think that's going to be his way to victory on this one, man. Get the respect of Cody Stamann, hurt him early, hurt him fast, and then keep that pressure on. And don't let him get grabbed, or don't let Cody Stamann grab you, so that way he can still maintain that distance. That's going to be the best way for Said to get things done. And like I said, man, utilize that lateral movement. If he can stay lateral and not get grabbed, not get put against the fence, hurt Cody Stamann, I think that's the path to victory. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a very good game plan that you're talking about right there. And if he can implement it, I think it would be good. The only problem that I see with this logic is that if this fight plays out the way that we're both envisioning it, Nurmagomedov is going to be on the back foot the whole fight, and that's going to get you tired. And after a while, man, are you going to have the same pop on those spinning shots? Are you going to telegraph those spinning shots a little bit more, right? I do think Cody Stamann is going to have to be really careful for the first round, maybe round and a half, but he's going to have to start really taking it over, digging in for those takedowns after that to be able to finish off the fight. It's going to be interesting just because Nurmagomedov truly is the longer fighter. When we're talking about reach, 70 inches to 64 inches in favor of Nurmagomedov. Man, so that's a big reach advantage. And generally speaking, I would take those long reach guys in a fight like this. But I just think that people are underrating Cody Stamann beyond belief in this. I don't know if it's because he has 2 losses in his last fights. I mean, he took the Rivera fight on short notice. He even said it himself. He's like, I shouldn't have taken that fight. I should have took a little more time. Did kind of the company man move. The fight against the machine. AJ, can you blame anybody for losing a great cardio pace battle against Merab Dvalishvili, who was arguably one of the best to do it in the division?
Not even close, Derick. And like I said, he matched the machine pretty as close as we've seen anyone do it in that cardio output. Yeah. But I mean, Merab is named the machine for a reason, bro. This dude has no give. Absolutely.
And the last thing that I wanted to talk about before we kind of give our picks for this matchup, AJ, is do you remember the Cody Stamann fight against Song Yadong? Do you remember that one?
Oh, yeah.
So I thought that that's very similar to how this fight probably would play out. When we're looking at a speedy dude who Nurmagomedov is very fast, so is Song Yadong. Stamann, he freezes up a little bit. He kind of tends to turn into a counter striker. But if he could still stay aggressive and work for those takedowns, I think he can get the job done because he was able to negate a lot of the power and speed of a Song Yadong in that fight, which ultimately ended up being a draw. I think Cody Stamann should have won the fight personally, but Song Yadong, he did lose a point in the first round for illegally kneeing Stamann in his forehead. Did exactly what Jan did to Aljo, except, when they asked Cody Stamann, hey, man, you know what I mean? Do you need a doctor? He said, fuck no, man. Just give me my point. Let's go. And I was like, damn, listen, that's why you got to love a Cody Stamann because he is a game-bred fighter. Last thing, AJ, before we move on, I just wanted to take a look at this. For Said Nurmagomedov, man, if we're looking at his in his career, let me just zoom this in a little bit. Boom. There we go. Okay, when we're looking at his career, man, in the UFC, we have 4 fights, right? 3-1 in the UFC, and the one fight that stands out that he lost was against Raoni Barcelos, and this was a fight where Barcelos was able to take him down twice in that fight. So that's something of note. That's something that we need to take into account because if I remember correctly, the takedown happened like one solid one in the 3rd round. There might have been like one in the 2nd round that Nurmagomedov got up from really quickly, but the big one was in the 3rd round. So if you lose a fight where you're getting taken down, that's something of note. However, he did get taken down No, actually, that's the only time he's been taken down is in that loss, man. So something to take into consideration, folks. However, in the other fights, I mean, look at it. Spinning back kick, against Ricardo Ramos. That was beautiful to see, man. It goes to show how much power he has in those spinning attacks. That first round KO against Mark Striegel, like I already noted, Striegel was looking to get the takedown. As soon as he entered distance, right there on the side of the head, right above the ear, a couple shots for the ground and pound, got him out of there, man. So impressive career thus far from Said Nurmagomedov, who is 14-2, but now it ultimately comes down to us, my man. Who are you picking, brother? You got Cody Stamann or do you got Said Nurmagomedov in this bantamweight contest?
Man, me personally, I'm going Said Nurmagomedov, and I'm going by decision, brother. Okay. I think it's going to be a long, drawn-out fight with Said on the back foot the entire time. Cody Stamann pressing forward under the guise that Cody Stamann isn't able to get that takedown. Because I think that's the biggest thing about Cody Stamann, man. He's going to be all pressure, all takedown heavy. And once he's able to get you there and hurt you, and even if you do get up, he's going to start throwing those bombs in the pocket. Dude is a very dangerous fighter, especially for a striker like Said. So if he's able to do that and able to get off and not be able to be taken down, I'm leaning towards Said Nurmagomedov on this fight. I think it's going to be a long one, man. I'm going by decision. What about you, Derick?
Well, since we're taking that logic, that's the approach that you want to take, is like a long, drawn-out decision type fight. I got to rock with the Spartan, Cody Stamann, man. Like I said, I think he's been discounted a little bit too much, man. Yes, is he 5-3-1 in the UFC? Not the most impressive. Yes, is he 2-2-1 in his last 5? Don't even concern yourself with that stuff, man. Look at who he's fighting against. Look at who Said Nurmagomedov has been fighting against. No disrespect. I just think the caliber of fighters is a little bit higher for a Cody Stamann. I mean, he has fought the champ after all. And I mean, he got worked by the champ. But that's neither here nor there. Listen, Cody Stamann, man, I think that he has the tools to be able to negate some of the offensive attacks of a Said Nurmagomedov. And if you can keep him on the ground with his back on the ground and really test some of that Dagestani Sambo, I think that we can really then get a true picture and idea of just how good the wrestling of a Nurmagomedov is. Because AJ, man, listen, no disrespect, brother, but I do think that one thing that people are just kind of like putting on Nurmagomedov, and I think it's because of the name, is that he is this prodigy wrestler who can just wrestle with the best of them. We haven't seen it yet. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that he can't. I'm just saying we haven't seen it in the big show yet. He has impressive takedown defense, especially in his fight against Raoni Barcelos. But Barcelos was ultimately able to get the takedown. I think Stamann will be able to do the same thing. I'm going decision win, Cody Stamann, and we can move on from that one, brother. Okay. Listen, that was fast-paced, but here, we ready to go, my man. Listen, this was a fight that was supposed to take place back on UFC Vegas 46. They got the bump because Fialho, he got COVID, so they moved it on over to UFC 270. But this is going to be a really fun matchup, brother. Like, I'm telling you, if you don't know about Andre Fialho, folks, listen, this dude is a banger. However, let's talk about it first. Number 18 ranked, Michel Pereira. Sorry, folks. Number 18 ranked, Michel Pereira. He's a minus 280 favorite with a plus 230 comeback for Andre Fialho. Now, Andre Fialho, if we know anything about him, this is a dude who's fought out of the PFL. This is a dude who's fought out of a couple different promotions. But the big thing to take into account right here is that his last couple of fights have been in the UAE Warriors, 3 of them, one in ex-MMA and then one in the LFA, all that good stuff, right? This dude has power in his hands, brother. And Michel Pereira, even though he's a very powerful fighter, huge frame for the division. Am I right? Like this monster for the division. I think this is going to be a battle of energy consumption. This is going to be a battle of one man fading throughout 3 rounds and another man keeping his power for 3 rounds. I think that's what it's going to be a battle of personally. How do you see this fight on paper? You know what I mean? Do you see the dancey kind of a capoeira style, a little bit of a Pieta with the backflips and all the crazy stuff? Do you think that would be advantageous against a dude who could knock your lights out, shut your lights off with one shot in Andre Fialho? What do you think?
Ooh, I don't think it's going to be advantageous at all, man. I agree with you, Derick. I think this one's going to be a fight of energy consumption. And Fialho coming back off of COVID, man, I can speak to it myself. You feel a little drained, man. I almost passed out the other day in yoga just because it really does take a lot out of you for him to come back that fast off of COVID. You know, we're talking a couple week span right here. This dude, his cardio is going to be challenged. But I feel like Michel Pereira, his cardio is always challenge. I mean, we saw a lot of the flashiness and a lot of the up and coming when he was coming in, man, throwing those backflips, throwing those crazy spinning attacks. But now lately, as he's grown as a fighter, a little bit has started to subside and he started to do a little bit more technical style of fighting, man. I really think it's going to be advantageous of Pereira to be able to go in there stay calm, stay motivated, throw some flash every now and then because that's the way he likes to fight. But then at the same point, utilize his gas tank, maintain that, so that way he can actually do well against Fialho. Because even Fialho is saying, man, in his interviews that he's looking to tire Pereira down, get the win that way, really start this as a grinder match, get Pereira tired, and then go for the win after that. I think either way, whatever way it's going to go, whether, it's Pereira getting tired or Fialho getting tired, whatever it is, I think it's going to be a war of attrition. Maintaining that gas tank is going to be key for both of these gentlemen. And at least if history has proven anything, we see that Pereira is a little more willing to dump that gas tank to get the finish. And to that point, man, Fialho's fought some crazy people. And I think even in his fight against Chris Curtis, because this dude, he hasn't fought, the top level of fighters or the top level of promotion, but he has fought top level fighters. A lot of the dudes he's been fighting have made it their way to the UFC. And even in his Chris Curtis fight, he was winning. He was doing well first rounds 1 and 2, and then really started to get tired. And that's when Curtis was able to get that rear naked choke submission. And it just plays to the fact that the cardio is going to be an issue, or at least a sticking note, if you will, in this fight coming forward. What do you think, Derick?
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you, man. You basically took the words out of my mouth because that's what I was going to reference. What was that Chris Curtis fight against Andre Fialho? We did see his cardio get exposed in that fight, which is not necessarily what you want to see. But when we're still talking, I think that's a lesson to be learned because that fight happened back in 2019, right? So then he takes another fight, no contest. Another fight after that, loses to Antonio Dos Santos Jr. in here. Why don't I just pull it up instead of talking about it, right? So loses to Antonio Dos Santos Jr. decision. And then we see a 4-fight run right here. James Vicks knocks him out in the second round. Song Hoon Yu knocks him out 18 seconds in the first round. Lincoln Puig, 4 minutes 47 first round. Stefan Sekulic, this is a big win right here. This is a very important win right there. That's a good fighter. Knocks him out in the first round. So when we see this career, man, you see a lot of wins to start it off, a couple losses, you know what I mean, a little rough streak, but then we get back to our winning ways, and that's what propelled him over here to the UFC, in my opinion. So that's really the big key right there, AJ, is that if he can learn from those mistakes that he's made in the past, conserve that energy, and then just walk Pereira down, slowly but surely crush the space, get Pereira on the back foot, get him against the cage where he has nowhere else to go, man. I saw one, it was the last couple of fights, man. It was Fialho. He was in a spot where the dude had like a single leg on him or something like that, and then he just like threw an elbow or just threw something like at him while he was on one leg. Just throws the elbow, knocks the dude out. And it was just like that. It's that easy. It's that simple. That's all you have to do. It could have been the Sekulic fight if I'm not mistaken, but neither here nor there, man. For Michel Pereira, man, let's talk about a couple of ways where he can actually win this fight, because this is a winnable fight. I mean, don't get me wrong. He's a minus 280 favorite for a reason. And this dude has wins over Nico Price, Chaos Williams, Imadev, man. I mean, come on. His only last 2 losses in his last 5 are Diego Sanchez, which is a fight. He beat the brakes off of Diego Sanchez and then hit him with an illegal knee, so DQ loss. But Tristan Connolly, he lost that fight via decision. And that's an interesting one right there, man, because Tristan Connolly, he's a wrestler, man, a wrestler who can strike. But that's a little bit of a revelation into this matchup, man. How can Pereira win? Does he got to mix up the shots? Does he need to just use the erratic movements, all the feints, constantly feinting? Like, does he need to do that? Or do we need to see a slow, patient Michel Pereira try to work his game? But that's not really his game. Like, he has to be him to win. So I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, man, I think he needs to be him to win. I think he needs to come in there not as crazy, not as, flashy as he normally is, but still have that as his base aspect, man. If he's in there doing his thing, having fun, throwing those flashy kicks, that capoeira style, I think that's the way to keep Fialho on that back foot, because you don't want to catch one of those, spinning roundhouses to the head, man. Even Fialho, as dangerous and as tough as he is, nobody wants to eat that shin to your face. So if Michel Pereira is able to maintain that kind of flow, get in that flow state, really start swinging those crazy capoeira strikes, that unpredictable style where he has the strikes coming from those unpredictable angles that Fialho's not to see, I think that's his best way to win, man. Sure, he does need to maintain his gas tank and be able to stay reserved a little bit in that first round. But if he takes the same approach that Rodolfo Vieira took in his last fight, where he laid off the gas tank for that first round and then really started to fight his fight in the second and the third, I think that's going to be Pereira's best way to get victory in this one, man. Okay, interesting, man. And the last thing that I got for you, what does it mean to you that Andre Fialho in his pre-fight presser said that he knows dudes who have trained with Pereira, and he says that his ground game really isn't all that? What does that mean to you? Because when we're looking at it, man, I mean, Pereira has 100% takedown defense in the UFC. He's never been taken down.
he'll backflip on you. He'll get to the ground that way, you know what I mean? But is that a little insight? Do you think that Fialho is going to try to mix it up and maybe work some takedowns, try to get a little ground and pound? Like, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, that's exactly what it means to me, man. As Fialho knows there's a hole, and the best way to get somebody tired is really just lean on them, man. Put your body on them, have them carry you, get that grappling game going, get that lactic acid build up. I think that's going to be a little nugget of knowledge that Fialho dropped on us on towards his game plan, man. If he's able to do it too, because like you said, Pereira has an amazing takedown defense, and the way he goes about things, he stays low, even though he's a big man, so it's hard to get him taken down. But if Fialho can, and he knows, how to do it, he has that inside knowledge, it'll be interesting to see how it unfolds.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So let's just take a look at it real fast. Listen, even in the Tristan Connolly fight, he took Connolly down twice. So Connolly wasn't even able to notch a takedown on him. But, I mean, when we're looking at it, he's notched 2 takedowns in the Connolly fight, 2 in the Sanchez fight, 1 in the Imadev fight, 2 in the Chaos Williams fight, and 3 in the Nico Price fight. So if anything, it looks like Michel Pereira, he's the wrestler in this contest, man. So maybe we need to worry about Pereira saying, hey, how about I take Fialho down because I don't want to deal with the striking on his end. Then again, cardio comes into an issue. So let's give our picks, brother. Who do you have in this fight and why? And we'll talk over and under. So what do you think?
Man, I'm going, what's the over-under? Round and a half?
Over-under on this fight, actually. So just give me your pick first because I got to look it up. I thought I had it. I don't have it. So give me your pick.
Okay, no worries. Either way, I'm probably going with the over, man. I'm going by decision. I think Pereira's going to be able to maintain that gas tank in the first round like I've been talking about, and then really start to get into that flow state, start firing some shots, keeping Fialho at bay. And I don't think Fialho's going to be able to take him down. If he does, I'll be shocked. I'll be surprised because Michel Pereira has a very nice takedown defense, and we've just seen through the last couple fights that Michel Pereira has had, the defense or the way he goes about fighting has really changed into more of a decision fighter. He's kind of gotten away from the flashy strikes, the flashy KOs, but it's still in him, and I know that dog is still there, so he still has the opportunity to get it done, especially when he has a willing opponent that's able to march forward, look for the ground game, look for the strong attacks, and then Pereira is able to counter strike off that, man. So me personally, I'm going Michel Pereira by decision. Probably the over. What about you, Derek?
So the over and under on this one is 2.5 rounds. So if you're going decision, definitely taking the over on that one, man. I'm rocking with Fialho on this one. And the reason why is because I do agree, even though Michel Pereira, he's been able to pull off these very, very impressive victories. When you look at his UFC record, man, it's just very impressive to see. It's like he's only lost a couple of times, really only should have 1 loss in that basically span of 5-6 fights or whatever. And he's able to just get the job done every single time, even though Dana White didn't like that he come out dancing and doing all that stuff, But I think that Andre Fialho could be his kryptonite because at any given moment, he can shut his lights off with 1 shot. And that's the scariest part about Fialho. That's what he's always been known for. You could be winning the entire fight, but if he gets your back against the cage for 1 moment and lands that 1 big shot, it's game over. And obviously, you don't want to necessarily bet on that. Oh, but if he gets lucky, if he lands that 1, but it is a fist fight and you do trade blows and Pereira does get hit. It's not like he doesn't get hit, man. He has a good chin, but let's see that get tested against Fialho. So the fighter out of Portugal versus the fighter out of Brazil, I think it's going to be a fun one, but I like Fialho to play spoiler. If the finish does come, I do see it coming later in the fight once Pereira gets a little bit tired. I don't know if it will happen because if we're being honest about it, brother, let me look at it. For Pereira, the man has been knocked out only once in his 37 fight career, right? So very impressive chin on the man. But Fialho, in his 14 wins, has knocked out 11 of his opponents. That is no coincidence. Like you said, he hasn't fought in the best promotions, but he has fought some names for sure. So I like Fialho. I'm going TKO round 3 on this one. And I think that if I'm not mistaken, for 2.5 rounds, I'd have to go 12 minutes and 30 seconds. So I'll take the over. How about that? I'll take the over on that one. Not, you know what I mean? But one of those late round KOs. Get them out of there. You dig. All right, brother. Now that that's over, we got some title belts that we need to talk about, folks. 2 titles on our hands. We got the flyweight title and the men's heavyweight title. Should be a fun one. Let's talk about it first. Brandon Moreno, the champion, man. Mexico's first UFC champion. Native Mexico. Not Cain Velasquez, but, Brandon Moreno. And this is the trilogy match against Deuce de Guerra, number 1 ranked Deiveson Figueiredo, man. Moreno opened up as a minus 175 favorite with a plus 150 comeback for Figueiredo. But how definitive the second fight of this trilogy was. Do you think that Brandon Moreno should be a bigger favorite, or do you think that just because of the history of Figueiredo, they're just showing the man some respect in terms of the betting line? What do you think?
Man, I think history does come into play on this one because Figueiredo, let's not mince words. I do think he won that first fight. I mean, it came out to a draw because he lost that point, but he was doing well, man. He was putting it to him. And then you have the aspect of the second fight because that was a very definitive win for Moreno, but Figgy had a little bit of what's the word I'm looking for? Where he not necessarily excuses. You know, he was tired, he was feeling sick, he was throwing up. Nobody feels good going into the fights, but Deiveson Figueiredo just wasn't on his game that one, man, and it really showed because Brandon Moreno absolutely put it to him. Nothing like the first fight. The second fight was absolutely incredible for Brandon Moreno. This fight going forward, I think we're going to see a very motivated Figueiredo, and I think that's why the steam's leading a little bit more towards Figueiredo. A lot of people have chosen him. Even Uncle Chael chose him. So it's going to be interesting to see how it actually unfolds, if it's going to be a lot like the first fight, if it's going to be more like the second fight. This one's going to be interesting, man. I'm excited for this grudge match coming forward. What about you, Derick?
I'm very excited, but I have one big takeaway from this matchup that I think that this is why the betting line is skewed a little bit, right? So in the second fight, we were able to see Brandon Moreno take the center of the octagon and hold it for the majority of the fight. And in the first fight, Figueiredo just walked Moreno down back against the cage immediately. That's where Figueiredo does his best work, man. He's a powerhouse at 125 for a reason. He has rare power in the men's flyweight division. But he's like, I consider Figueiredo to be an avalanche type fighter. And what I mean by that is you can't let him get rolling. You know what I mean? You can't let him get started. Because once he gets started, it's going to be a long night for you. You know what I'm saying? So if you can somehow negate him getting started, if you can negate him moving forward, if you could beat him with speed, if you can do all of these little things to get him out of his flow, out of his groove, out of his rhythm, we will see the fighter that we saw in the second fight where everything was winging. It was 1-2 at a time where Moreno's hitting you left hook to the body, right hand over the top, calf kick, you know what I mean? He's hitting you in all these different things, confusing you. I think Figueiredo definitely didn't deal with the speed well in the last fight. So I think that I honestly think Brandon Moreno might be a minus 250 favorite in my book, in my sports book that I'm running over here. You know what I'm saying? Just because Figueiredo, it seems like Moreno has his number mentally and physically. And what I mean by that is, like I said, Moreno was able to hold the center of the cage because in the first fight, he realized I could take this man's power. This is not a game changer. It's not a life-changing power. Okay. Even though I don't want to get hit, I can beat him with the speed. I can beat him with my feints. If I show him I have no respect for him, and if I bully the bully, this is a different fighter. This isn't that big boogeyman that is able to just, you know what I mean, scare everybody off by walking him down and touching him one time. I mean, look at what he did to a Joseph Benavidez. He knocks him out, and then he strangles the life out of him in the next fight. Joseph Benavidez is one of the best flyweights to do it in the history of the UFC. So with all that being said, I think Moreno is he should be a favorite, a little bit more of a favorite in this matchup, but I still think that this is going to be a competitive fight. Don't get me wrong. Figueiredo can spark you with one shot, but I think Brandon Moreno really does respect that power. So do you think that's going to be a mistake in this matchup? Do you think Moreno should still be very, very cautious of the fighter named Deuce Tiguera? Or do you think that, come in, fight the same fight you fought in the second fight and, rinse, wash, repeat?
Man, I think Moreno needs to bully the bully on this one, man. He did so well for him in the second fight. But to that point, I think Figueiredo knows what happened in that second fight, and he's not going to allow it to get going, man. That's what intrigues me most about this battle coming up fourth. Since they've had two basically very different fights, it's going to be interesting to see who's able to take that center of the octagon, be the bully, be the dog in there, and impose their will against the other fighter. I think that's the biggest key for Brandon Moreno is he needs to show Figueiredo that he has zero respect for his power. He can sit there and he can trade in there with the best of them. And to that point, man, Figueiredo needs to prove that he is the top dog once again and really be that bully that he's used to being. Because when he fights that style of fight, he's basically invincible, man, undefeatable. This dude is a powerhouse in there. Like you said, man, as absolute power in the 125-pound division. It's just, can he be that dog again? I think in this fight, it's going to be a lot closer to that normal Figueiredo style we're seeing.
Absolutely. I think one thing that people are failing to kind of realize or recognize or remember is that Brandon Moreno actually was able to nullify Figueiredo's jiu-jitsu. He was actually able, Figueiredo has had Moreno in some bad spots in terms of jiu-jitsu, and Moreno being able to survive those, reverse position, grab the back, choke him out. I think that's a real testament to whose jiu-jitsu is a little bit more high level, at least on that night. You know what I mean? Because listen, man, that's just one of those things where it's like it's not going to be the big highlight. You're going to see the striking, all that. That's going to be the big highlight from both of these fighters. But that's what changes the game right there, is who has that ability to create a better sprawl, who can do the thing that's just natural and grab the back and then sink in the choke. I think that's going to play into a big part. But I have a question for you before we give our picks on this, AJ. Bigger surprise. What would be a bigger surprise in your opinion? Brandon Moreno basically repeating the second fight and just, you know what I mean, basically from rounds 1 to round 3 or round 5, however long it takes, putting it on Figueiredo, beating him in every aspect of the game, having his number, or this being a lot more reminiscent to the first fight where it's very back and forth and Figueiredo's knocking down Moreno and it's a crazy war. What would surprise you more, the war or the definitive one-sided fight on either for these fighters? So for one-sided for Moreno, one-sided for Figueiredo, or a war, what's the biggest surprise?
I think the biggest surprise would be the definitive one way or the other for me, especially since these fighters know each other. I think we're in store for a war right here, man. I think we're in store for a 5-round slobber knocker fest, man. Where it'd be more surprising to me. I guess less surprising if Figueiredo was able to get it done because that's his style. More surprising if Brandon Moreno is really able just to impose his will again in the second, like he did in the second fight. Because I think Figueiredo having that experience to him against him, he's not going to want to let that happen again. So he's going to do everything he can to not allow that to be. What do you think, Derick? I saw a surprise face there.
I'm a little, just because, man, if you like where I'm seeing Brandon Moreno and where I'm seeing him have his success, I'm just like, this man has Figgy's number when it comes down to like, all right, I know what the big shot's coming. I know I can hit him with this. If you look at him, Moreno has this very confident chin up. Yeah, what's up? You know, he has that very confident style. And I think that it's because he felt the power of a fake. Listen, man, I could be wrong. Obviously, both of us could be wrong. Who knows? We can't predict the future. We'll find out on fight night. But I do think it would not be shocking if Brandon Moreno had a very dominant victory against a Deiveson Figueiredo. I think it'd be a little more surprising in my eyes if Figueiredo came in and just sparked Moreno. Just because it's like, okay, was Moreno really that good, or was he really just on that night, or was Figgy just having a really bad night? Like, we don't know, honestly. Last question. What do you make of Henry Cejudo being in the corner of a Deiveson Figueiredo over there fighting at, what is it? Do you remember what their gym is called?
I want to say Fight Ready, but that's the one in Paris.
No, I think it is Fight Ready. Right? Anyway, folks, somebody will Google it. Google it at home if you're really interested. But the point is over there with Cejudo and Coach Eric and all that stuff, you know what I'm saying? Like having those guys in the mix and all that. Coach Eric was already there, but having Henry Cejudo in the corner, I think he's going to be legitimately cornering him. And the history between Brandon Moreno, he used to train with Cejudo and all that. What do you make of that before we give our picks on that, man? Do you think that's going to be an X factor in this one?
Man, yeah, I think it is, because anytime you can have that inside aspect, especially as much as, you know, Triple Cringe gets a lot of the heat, I do think this dude is a very smart and intelligent fighter, and he's able to break the game down. I've been watching a lot of his wrestling techniques videos that he puts out. Homeboy is very smart. I mean, you can only get to the Olympics with being that way. So I think the fact that he's in the corner of Figueiredo is going to be a very, very good tool to utilize, especially in the aspect against Brandon Moreno.
Okay, brother. Well, hey, man, listen, the over and under is 4.5 rounds. What are you going, and still or and new?
Ooh, I'm going with the over, Derick, and I'm going and still. I'm rocking with Brandon Moreno, man. I think it's going to be a very interesting fight going forward. Really going to have the heart tested. This one, actually, man, I was having a very hard time choosing back and forth whether I wanted Figueiredo, whether I wanted Moreno. There was a lot of things going into this one. I think we're in store for a grinder of a fight coming forward. I don't think this one's going to be I do think this one's going to be left to the judges. I'm going decision, and I'm going Brandon Moreno. What about you, Derick?
All right, brother. Well, hey, I'm going to have to basically echo that sentiment. I'm going a decision win for Brandon Moreno as well. That means I will be taking the over on 4.5 rounds. I just think that if Deiveson Figueiredo has shored up his cardio a little bit, and if this is a little more competitive of a matchup than the second one is, which hopefully that's what we will be seeing, I think that this could be a very fun 5-round banger, but I do see Brandon Moreno getting the edge, maybe, like 3 rounds to 2 or something like that. You know what I mean? Maybe 4 rounds to 2, or I don't know. My math doesn't add up at that point for round. You know what I'm saying? I think it's going to be a little kind of a definitive win for Moreno, but it could be one of those where it was like close rounds where it's all like, you know, I mean, look at the Giga versus Calvin fight. You know what I mean? It was like, yeah, Calvin Kattar was putting it on him, but Giga had his moments. So I think Figgy will have his moments, but Moreno will overall just kind of overwhelm a little bit and retain the belt. And still, baby, and then we keep the division pushing. Then again, don't be surprised, folks. A lot of people have been predicting that there's going to be a lot of turnover in the flyweight division. So we'll see, man. You never really know. But all right, brother. Now it's time for the real main event, the people's main event, the world's main event right here. Who is the baddest man on the planet? In my opinion, it is the Predator, Francis Ngannou, who is the current heavyweight champion. In my opinion, this is his first title defense in the UFC for defending that heavyweight belt. But in a lot of the fans' opinions, Ciryl Gane is the interim champion, and this is a title unification bout because he's the people's champion. Some people would say that for Ciryl Gane. Ciryl Gane wouldn't even say that himself. But does it surprise you, brother, that Ngannou is a plus 135 underdog with a minus 160 comeback for Ciryl Gane? You know how much of a fan I am of Gane, but in my eyes, head over to your sports book right now and put some money on Ngannou. Like, how dare you people? You feel me? I'm just saying, I know this is a what have you done for me lately. I know Ngannou hasn't fought in over, it's been almost a year or something like that. I think he fought last March when he beat Stipe. But give me your take, brother. What do you think about these odds? Are you in line with them? Do you disagree? We need to talk. What do you think?
Bro, I am shocked, absolutely shocked that Ngannou is an underdog. I was expecting a minus 110, minus 110. These dudes they've trained together, they know each other, they have the kryptonite for each other. I'm just absolutely shocked that we have forgotten and blown away Francis Ngannou and fallen in love with the new hot thing that is Ciryl Gane, man. Absolutely mind-blown that how soon we forget that the Predator is dangerous, man, and growing. We saw in the Stipe fight, this dude was sprawling, he was rolling, he was doing all the stuff we didn't think he was able to do, and he has a knockout power. My mind is blown. The fact that this dude is the underdog coming into this fight, I was expecting a lot closer, but people have really fallen in love with the new breed of heavyweight that we're seeing in Ciryl Gane. And don't get me wrong, Ciryl Gane, even though he's 10-0, he may not have fought the longest or has the longest streak of fighting the killers, but he has fought some really killer techniques. Just nobody has been able to take him down. Nobody's been able to be the one that's putting him on the back foot, even though he does have very nice movement, lateral movement. He's able to get out of there. Even when he saw Derek Lewis trying to do it, Ciryl Gane just turned and ran. Like he knew better than to just sit there with the power and fuck around with that. He's going to do the exact same thing on this one. There's no chance that he's going to want Ngannou to touch him because he knows how powerful it is. And to that fact, I think the media, I mean, first off, this fight hasn't been conceptualized or promoted anywhere near what it should have been. A lot of people have been saying this is going to be the best heavyweight fight we've ever seen. I hope it is, but there's been a whole lack of promotion, and I really think these numbers come from that video that came out. And to that point, I mean, it was sparring. Anything can happen. Sure, he ate a hell of a knee, but even to Francis Ngannou's point, man, he's knocked him out a couple times too. There's when those big mallets start flying, man, anything can happen. I think we're in store for a banger of a fight on this one. I'm absolutely shocked that Ngannou's the underdog. What about you, Derick?
Yeah, brother. I mean, I just, like I said, lest we forget, I don't know what it is about this MMA fans. I don't know what it is about the odds makers, man, but you know how much of a fan I am of Ciryl Gane if you have watched this program. I've bet against him multiple times. I lost, and then I said I cannot bet against the man anymore. Have basically been betting on him since then, but now this is one of those where the betting line has to come to an end eventually because, like I said, that's just how scary of a man Francis Ngannou is. It literally only takes one. And last time that I bet against Ngannou, I was proved terribly wrong because I said, oh, Stipe, he was perfect in the first fight. He'll be perfect again. It's fine. Yeah, guess what, man? You saw it very evident from the beginning. Stipe Miocic, when he was having that first fight, which is, I mean, listen, man, I don't even know if Ciryl Gane could get past a Stipe Miocic. So that's why I think it's a little ludicrous to be like, oh, yeah, he'll just beat Ngannou. You know what I'm saying? But the big key that I had is that Stipe had to be so careful on his entries. He never really could get his offense going because all it took was one jab from Ngannou to drop him. All it took was getting into those sprawls, getting into that ground and pound. Like all of those situations, Ngannou's power is the equalizer for any situation that you have. Yes, can you get him tired? Of course. Will he be patient? Well, hopefully he will. That'll be the predicator of this fight. But AJ, I wanted to take a look over here if you don't mind. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop this down real fast and then we'll move on over. Boom. There we go. Okay, let me get you back in, brother. Okay, so We're looking at Francis Ngannou on the left, Ciryl Gane on the right. And I wanted to take a look at the striking numbers between these two. And it's vastly, vastly different. For Ngannou, against Stipe Miocic, he landed 36 significant strikes, right? And this is one of the longer fights that he had. This was 2 rounds over here, brother. 36. Against Rozenstruik, only needed 6. Against Dos Santos, only needed 9. Cain Velasquez only needed 6. Curtis Blades only needed 13. I mean, come on, brother. When we're looking at Ciryl Gane, though, 98 against Derick Lewis, 135 against Volkov, 102 against Rozenstruik, 59 against Dos Santos, 65 against Bozer, 94 against Dontel Mays. The point that I'm basically bringing up here is that Gane has to get it done by volume. That's the name of his game. It's volume, volume, volume. Let me see what I can do. Piece you up, war of attrition, get you tired, then start putting some power on you. Francis Ngannou just never needed that. He never has needed that. Even when we go back to the older fights, brother, and I was watching some of these older fights from Ngannou, and I was like, this is a transformed man. This is a different human being. Because when you watch some of his fights against, for an example, Curtis Blades for the first time, man, like this dude, like, listen, it's like, how do you even know how to defend a takedown? Your strikes are all loopy, all crazy. Looking at Overeem when he got that uppercut from hell on Overeem, man, the win against Arlovsky. I mean, come on, brother. That's all I'm saying here is that, this man, Francis Ngannou, at the end of the day, has life-changing power. He literally disfigured Curtis Blades' face in the first fight. Had to get a stoppage because Curtis Blades' eye was just so swollen. Like, it was that level of fight. So, I guess here's the big question here. This is what we're all wondering. You can't walk through the rain and not get wet. Is that what's necessary for Ciryl Gane here? Like, will he be able to walk through the rain, and survive it? That's the thing. Will he handle those raindrops, or are those raindrops going to be acid rain taking him down? What do you think?
Man, those raindrops are iron dropping from the sky, brother. No way. I think he's going to have the same game plan he did against Derick Lewis, where it's touch up and evade, run away, get away, let the guy get tired. Yeah, turn tail and run. No shame in it when you're facing the predator, because this dude can literally, we've said it a million times, hits you with that pinky, you're going to sleep. Yeah. So, there's no way you can walk through that heavy of a rainstorm that Francis Ngannou puts on and not get caught or not get hit. And if you get caught right, man, you're going right to sleep. We saw what he did against Blades and absolutely, like you said, disfigured the man. We've seen a lot of these Francis Ngannou fights, man, the Jairzinho Rosen strikes, the Junior Dos Santos, these crazy fights where he just touches you and you're going out. It's going to be a very hard, I said before, I usually lean towards the technician in these kind of fights, the guy who's putting it on you consistently. Yeah. But when all you need is one and the other guy has to stay perfect for 5 rounds and not get touched once, it's a very high mountain to climb.
Is Francis Ngannou at the point of his career right now? He's at the pinnacle, man. This dude's like 35 years old. He's the champion. He made it, right? Is he at the point of his career where you can no longer bet against the man? Like, you just can't until he loses. It's just one of those things where it's just like Mayweather. You're like, all right, man, I'm going to keep betting against this dude for what? Like, he just doesn't lose. You know what I'm saying? For Francis Ngannou, his last loss was against Derick Lewis. I think we can all throw that fight out the window, right? Let's look at the one before that. Stipe Miocic. He was taken down 6 times in that fight. So I guess that's the big question. Can Ciryl Gane take the man down? Will that be part of his game plan? Or, at the end of the day, man, like I said, is Francis Ngannou just in that you can't bet against him territory? What do you think? And then let's give our picks.
Man, I think he's in that you can't bet against him, specifically because of the fact that he's growing, man. We saw the difference in Stipe fight number 1 versus Stipe fight number 2. Homeboy Ngannou was sprawling out, hitting reversals, doing all these crazy stuff that we did not expect him to do. Had tight hands guard up high, very crisp punches, not looping a couple, but not really looping as much as he used to. The fact that I was seeing this dude grow in his UFC, in his last 5-6 fights, is absolutely insane. And that's what makes me think you can't bet against this guy. Yeah. I don't think Ciryl Gane's going to take the ground game approach. We haven't seen him have too much of that. He's been a lot more of the volume striker, that Nate Diaz, where he's going to piece you up, death by 1,000 punches. That's a little bit more his style. And it's that new game that we've been seeing these heavyweights have, that speed, that technique that's really been lacking in the UFC or in the heavyweight division. Whereas Francis Ngannou is as much of his nickname is a predator. He's a little bit mix of both. Very talented in the speed department, obviously extremely powerful, and he's getting better on the ground game. And now that he's able to see that and kind of go forward, man, it's a hard bet against Ngannou in my book anyway.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. And really, let me get myself back on it. There we go. Okay, and really, I mean, I just think that this is a fight that maybe could have took place a couple more fights in the future for Ciryl Gane. You know what I mean? Like, I think that to go straight to the championship, even though the hype is real, man. He's legit. I just think that he needs at least, like, I would like to have seen him get past Stipe before this fight, just because it goes to show, like, if you can get past a Stipe, man, all right, let's talk Francis. But to go straight to Francis without even having to fight Stipe, something just is a little sour with me. Just because Ciryl Gane does also say, he was like, if I win this fight, I want to fight John Jones next. So I'm like, well, you know, okay. Well, we don't know if John Jones will ever fight again, really, at this point. But also, I mean, that's tough test. After you're literally saying, I'm going to fight the best, and then I'm going to fight the best of the best. And then where do you go from there? Sometimes you don't want to hit your pinnacle too quickly, right? You know what I mean? You want to take your time, rise up. But you're only 10 fights in, brother. I'm just saying. So, listen, brother. I'm just going to say it, man. Francis Ngannou gets the job done, I think, in my opinion. And still, you know. And the reason why I say this, once again, we talked about the power. We talked about the tenacity, all of that good stuff, man. But I just don't see a reality where anybody can do what Stipe did to Francis Ngannou in the first fight, man. You know what I mean? It's like, it's just tough to see it just because he has a propensity to be able to make a big octagon look small and a small octagon look like a phone booth, literally. So when you have nowhere really to go against this man, and the only caveat is if Francis Ngannou gasses out, all bets are out. You know what I mean? But if he can keep it within, you know what I mean, that kind of, you know, not too tired, that power remains, even if it goes 3-4 rounds, man, I think Francis Ngannou can get it. Do you think that if this fight goes past 4 rounds, it's just all Ciryl Gane? Or do you think that Ngannou is still in the fight?
No, I think he's still in the fight, but it does lean a little bit more towards Gane in that aspect.
Mm-hmm.
If he hasn't been caught yet, it's going to be a little harder once, you know, he's a little bit more tired. Once Ngannou's a little bit more tired. I do think that if it goes to decision, it's looking better for Gane. But, man, I'm rocking with Ant Still on this one as well, man. And I don't see any world where Gane is able to do what Stipe did in the first fight because Francis Ngannou learned from it and was able to grow like he did in the second fight. I think we're going to see a new, invigorated Francis Ngannou, especially with all the beef that's right there. I'm going Francis Ngannou, and I'm going KO round 2, Derick. I think he's going to get it done, man. KO in the second round. He's going to get caught with one of those raindrops and get put to sleep.
Well, brother, now you got me thinking, because I was like, okay, man, I could see Gane surviving a little bit, you know what I mean, using that footwork, bouncing around, dance, and that's what he said he's going to do. He's like, I'm going to dance, you know, and I was like, oh, I love to hear that. That's like some Muhammad Ali, right? But how many can he take? Because I think he might be able to take a couple. Even Stipe was able to take a couple from Francis before ultimately, you know what I mean? When he got hit with the left hook by Francis, it looked like he got hit by a truck. Like he woke up from getting hit by a car, legitimately, you know? So Gane, he's a little bit of a bigger man. You know, maybe he could take a couple more shots. So I'll go TKO round 3. But that means that I'm going over because it's the over and under is 2.5 rounds on this fight, AJ, believe it or not. So with that being said, my man, we both saying and still for both of the belts. That means that we don't think that there's going to be any title changes. And let me think about it. On the last time that we had some titles where we had Pena and then we had Oliveira, and still for Oliveira and new for Pena. Listen, man, maybe we might be 1-1 this time again. We'll see what happens. But I think that the champions are going to remain champions on this one. These are two very, very high level fighters. And I mean, all of them are high level fighters when it really comes down to it, AJ. But hey, man, that was some main card breakdown. Hell of a main card. UFC 270, man. Whew, love to see it. First pay-per-view of the year, man. Got to get my bearings right. So, all right, AJ, man, you know we got one more thing to do. And that is to talk about a fight of the night. And AJ, I'm going to leave it on the main card segment here because my fight of the night is on the main card, and I think you just got to tune in. If you can go to your sports bar, folks, like I said it a million times, go ahead on over, watch the fights. It'll be fun. You'll be right there with your little crowd at the sports bar, right? But I'm just going to let the cat out of the bag. Brandon Moreno versus Deiveson Figueiredo, the trilogy match. How could that not be fight of the night? I do not understand how any other fight could be fight of the night aside from this. And of course, could I be wrong? Yes, I'm wrong all the time. But listen, man. Does this not have that written all over it? Like, this is the trilogy. This is for the championship. Bad blood. 5 rounds. Both the two flyweights. We're going to throw a million punches. I mean, what are we talking about here? Does that sound like a fight of the night to you? What are we talking?
High impact, high velocity, high output. Derick, that sounds like fight of the night to me, my man. That's who I was going with as well. How could you not in the grudge match? It's fight 3. Of course this is going to be fight of the night. Yeah. If there was another I had to choose, I'd lean towards that Cody Stamann versus Said Nurmagomedov. Okay. Yeah. But to that point, man, you got Deuce the Geta, you got the Baby Assassin. That's fight of the night right there, brother.
Yeah, absolutely. And you get Assassin Baby, brother. Brandon Moreno explained it. He was all like, Baby Assassin sounds like I'm out here just stabbing babies or some shit. You feel me? It's like, so Assassin Baby. That's what we on right there. But hey, so that's the main card. That's the fight of the night, folks. Like we had already kind of broken it down. You know what I mean? We have a lot of fun fights on our hands over here, man. So listen, tune in. Come 3 o'clock Pacific time. Should be fun. It's always going to be fun when it's a pay-per-view and you have a lot of high stakes on the line. But one more time before we get out of here, AJ, I just want to take one more look back at the card and just say the big ones that you got to hit. Raoni Barcelos versus Victor Henry. It's a must. Ilia Topuria versus Charles Jourdain. A absolute must. Check out Jack Maddalena. Just do it, folks. Trust me on that one, right? Tony Gravely, your sleeper, versus Saimon Oliveira should be fun. Matt Frevola, the Steamrolla versus Gerano, Valdez should be very, very fun. But ultimately, folks, you're here to tune in for UFC 270, the pay-per-view, the main card, which we broke down. So if you like the betting odds, if you like the wagers, if you like our picks, all that, drop a like, subscribe, share the show with your friends, share the show with all of your combat sports friends who like this stuff, man. And if you don't mind, actually, listen, Instagram, Bloody Water Podcast, on Twitter, Bloody Water Pod, BWP.podcast.com. And the last little interlude that I got here, AJ, is I just wanted to take a look real fast. Let me make sure I got it up real fast because, I got to do my promos and all that good stuff. So, all right, man, we're over here, Bloody Water Podcast. As you can see, as we scroll down, the newest episode is always going to be up first thing here. You could watch, you could listen, hear some segments, all the good stuff. This is the website, man. And if you want to listen to it, well, you just hit the listen tab, you go down, listen to that, man. We got free episodes, the last 5 right there. You can watch them all for free, or you can listen to them, all for free. You want to hit the watch tab? Well, where's that going to take you? Straight on over to our to the watch right there, right? Listen, come on, short clips, everything. Biggest thing that we got to take away here is hit up the merch, man. You know what time it is. Feature products. Get your hoodies, get your mugs, crop tops, socks, whatever the case may be. Even get a nice t-shirt, man. Over here, AJ, I was actually looking at it and I was like, this is a beautiful right here. Military green. I don't know if you like that, man, but I like the little military green with the red contrast, all the good stuff. $25.99, which you could get 10% off using code BWP10 at checkout. What more do we need to say? I don't think we need to say anything else, AJ. I think this is a perfect way to conclude the show. So, hey, it's been a pleasure and honor breaking it down with you as always. And give me some last words before we get out of here, brother.
Woo, Derick, if you've already made it this far, folks, you know where to tune in for the best sports breakdown, MMA breakdown show out there. So you already know. Hit us in the comments. Let us know what you think, man. Let us know who your picks is. Let us know how much money you're winning out there too. I know you're putting our picks to use, so let us know in the comments. Hit us on Instagram. You know where to go. Bloody Water Podcast, man. It's the best show out there. Just got to send it to your friends so we can start spreading the word a little bit more.
Yeah, that's all you got to do, folks. Very simple, costing no money, free 99. Hit the share button, subscribe, rate, all the good stuff. But that's it for us. Folks, please enjoy UFC 270. We'll be back right there live in action on Monday, 8 a.m. with the post-show breakdown. You know where to find us as always, BWP.podcast.com. Until next